The second session is actually going to be very interactive. It's going to be a peer-to-peer discussion. But before we start this session, I want all the leaders present here to think of one question. Just reflect on this one question, and the question is, what is your company doing to make the frontline win at work? This is going to be the theme of this discussion, and for this discussion, I would like to invite Mr. Rajesh Dahiya, sir. Rajesh Dahiya ji is the CEO of Good Govern and a banking and general management leader with over 33 years of experience. He serves on the boards of Max Life Insurance, Bluestone Jewelry, and Caliber Chemicals, and has held senior roles at Tata Group and Axis Bank. A strong advocate of authentic, purpose-led leadership, he also contributes as a trustee and advisor to several social entrepreneurs. Over to you, Rajesh, sir. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And I'll try to make an interactive session, and I'll pick up from the previous panel. There are so many stories that we need to share, and each story has a message and a learning. So I'll walk up to your table, and in case you strongly believe that you don't want to answer, you can raise your finger and say, tell me to shut up, but I may spring a surprise on you with a question. So I'll come with the questions to your table, if that's okay. So hearing the previous panel, one thought came to my mind. So first of all, I was feeling very bad because I have worked for two companies in my career. Here are the two people who worked only for one company. So I tried it once, which should not happen. So that's something which came to my mind. But also a story that I remembered when actually I was leaving Tata Group for another job. Then my chairman, Mr. Gopalakrishna, called me, and he says, I'll have a job for you in Bombay House. So I said, yeah, that will be wonderful, because Bombay House is both a metaphoric dream and a great job. He says, but you need to pass one test. And one question he asked me was, kabhi dalda becha hai? So it's a typical HUL question, and everybody knows about that. If you need to lead, you need to do sales. And here today, I worked in a financial service company, a large bank of the country, and my colleagues are here. Many of them are from the same financial sector. We are struggling with the same frontline people who are actually selling banking daldas. They are opening accounts, they are selling loans, they are selling credit cards. And then we are talking about not 30, 40, but we are talking about something like 45% standalone frontline attrition, or maybe more, Murli. You know the figures very. Practically, we lose everyone who joins us as an industry. The question is, are they not happy with the job, or are they rejecting whatever industry they may be joining in? It may be financial services, it may be IT, or it may be other allied services also. So my first question, and the question is regarding this, the story I told you and stories that you heard from the previous panel about the pride in the role that you do at early start of your career, the promise of growth that the early job promises you, the respect that one earns in the first job. So I'll walk up to one table and request someone to share a good example, good story in terms of how do we ensure that our frontline employees get the growth aspiration fulfilled, they get respect and dignity that's desirable for them to stay with the company.
Thank you, Rajesh. And maybe a wrong person to answer, because it's been 21 years I've been with ICICI. So long time, unheard of these days. But, I was just thinking about the topic, and I think the word productivity itself is a limiting. We should stop talking productivity, we should start talking potential, because that's what will get human to express what they are capable of. Productivity more or less gets calculated on an Excel sheet, coming out of your P&L number, you do some calculation basis what you have seen in the past, but that's not a reflection of what the individual can do. And that's what my thought will be, Rajesh, that we should be discussing human potential. That will lead to actually treating each person as what he or she can deliver. And it may differ from person to person, depending on what they are best at.
So my question is, you worked with the bank, now you're leading almost a most exciting business of affordable finance, leading frontline salespeople who bring in checks of 20 to 25 lakh every day. What difference do you make to their lives? Any best practices?
I won't say best practice. What we try our best, and I think it came out in the previous conversation, is to ensure that a lot of attention is paid to who do you hire, and ensure that, not only attitude, but explain the role very well, explain its sales. A lot of time, for the sake of meeting your numbers, because recruitment numbers, jobs are not explained very well, and then you end up getting people, and because they're unemployed, they'll join you and very soon figure out that their aptitude is not meant for sales, whereas 99% of our work is sales, except some of the assurance function. That's everything else is sales. So explain the job very well, explain the culture, and look for the right fit on culture. What kind of company we are, is, if that's something which we are finding out, that we have seen, it helps. Then, most of the attrition also which we're talking about happens at the earliest stages of the career. People come in and the first 6 months you see a lot of dropouts. So if we get the culture fit right and attitude right and explain it's a sales job, even if you're hiring an HR person, explain it's a sales job, next 6-8 months is sales, then you move into HR. Then the HR people will also understand what it takes to do a sales job. And that's what we do.
Wonderful. I was looking for this answer. Mr. Ghosh, you mentioned about you throw a stone and there is a business school. The problem is not only of the number of schools, problem is also the promises that are being made in those business schools. Many of us have done our rounds of campuses for annual hiring, and we meet young kids of 23, 24, and the first question you ask them, then what's your aspiration in career? And nothing less than Narayan Murthy or Ratan Tata, they will reply. So what do you want to do? I want to become Ratan Tata. So that's mismatch. And in some way, those ambitions are nurtured by the business schools or engineering colleges. And that's what Amitabh, my friend, is talking about, the great mismatch between what these people come looking for in the job and what we as organization end up delivering. So that's, thank you very much for that. Similarly, the question we spoke about with the earlier panel also, the question of money, which is important. We spoke about dignity, respect, understanding job. Is money a really problem in India? Mr. Mehta touched upon that. I think all of us are going to remember 6, 8, 10. But at the same time, we must agree that we are living a world of 10, 8, 6. That's a reality. 3.5 lakh paradigm, it's talk of LinkedIn everywhere. It's a reality. When I started my career, we paid, the first batch that I paid was 3.5 lakh. Today, I'm out, my colleagues are paying 3.5 lakhs. We say that no, we pay much more, but in reality that over 3.5 lakh is going to incentives, and incentive in case you don't earn, you're out of the system. So opportunity to go beyond 3.5 is very less. And here are two organizations we have heard from the respective gentlemen that they advocate that pay well and then demand the productivity. So anyone who would like to comment on, are we able to afford in today's world in large employment sector, IT, financial sector, insurance, to pay more? And the gap is almost double. 3.5 needs to go to 8 lakh. So that's what we're talking about. I'll come to this table.
Hi, this is Vivek Jain. Thanks, sir. Good to see you back again. I think Sandeep sir and Amitabh both talked about a point, and I'd like to elaborate on that. Recruitment, according to me, is 50% of the job, and training actually and shaping people is the remaining 50% of the job. And if you leave either, then your productivity will be lower. Salary as a parameter, I was HR for investment banking, Ramki is over here. There is never a constraint. If I get the productivity, I'm ready to pay. It is never a constraint to pay if I get the productivity. The question that we have is that as HR or as leaders, are we able to enable that productivity? I was fortunate to work in companies like Genpact and Kotak, where you get anybody with the right attitude. The company has the capability to train that person into the CEO of the company. We have stories and examples where management training moves to that levels. I think the fundamental, if you are impatient to deal with that situation, if you are in a hurry to get people quickly and don't have time to train them, I think we'll land up in a situation of 10, 8, 6, rather than an actual example where you allow time to train, you spend time to train them, and you have the 6, 8, 10 method. That is my limited point.
Yeah, wonderful. I agree with you. At the same time, there is also new kind of, it's not new for frontline salespeople. All of us are threatened by what AI can do in favor of me or against me. People like us are very happy. We don't need a secretary now. So just say, hey, write a response to this mail and the mail is ready. However, the same AI is getting played in the minds of frontline people. You will lose your jobs. And this discussion is not only happening among the people, it's coming somewhere from the senior people in the org. It's become the new threat. So productivity used to be one threat that in case you are not achieving those targets is one. Now there is an unsaid or said threat, AI will replace you. So I'll again walk up to a chair. How do we deal with this kind? How do we ensure that somebody does, a set of people who are critical to our growth, who are the bedrock, they don't start feeling alienated and threatened by something which is equally applicable to all, the so-called AI or tech. Will you take the question?
I think, hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Chandana Pai. And one of the key things that I've observed is, yes, there is a threat and there is a buzz amongst the young people that the roles and the jobs that they're doing right now, AI is going to take them away. But the way to look at it, especially for people entering the workforce, is that instead of fearing the unknown, which is AI, I think they need to understand how to harness the power of AI to enhance themselves and to make sure that they are delivering the productivity of maybe 5 people. And that might be the new normal, which all of us have to deal with. And I feel that it's the responsibility of the reporting managers as well as the top management to show them the way, rather than presenting it as a threat looming over their heads. Enabling people how to harness the power of AI is the way forward at all levels. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Building from the 3 questions that we discussed, spoke 3 different organizations. Let me come to the board. And how does board look at the real challenge of attrition? In my personal experience, I've seen the normalization starting from 10 to 11%, and me and my friends here, we used to actually compete amongst ourselves that if ICICI is 11%, how can I be 10.5? Today we are normalizing 40 to 45% in the boardrooms. That's a reality. And I'm talking about, again, some industries. Financial insurance sector is leading, IT is not behind. In the boardroom, we discuss about culture, but we don't realize that in case there is a 40 to 50 to 60% attrition, every year, half year culture is walking out of the door. So how does the conversation change in the boardroom, which gives space to the leaking culture, not only to building culture? And Rajiv, I'm coming to you with this question, because you see both aspects now from the board of Shalimar Paints.
I think it's a very thought-provoking concept which you have been talking about. But looking at it from the board's point, you rightly mentioned that we are worried about the cost we have to pay for having so much of attrition first. And second, as you mentioned, if you have any plans to build any culture of the organization, which to me is very important, because your future recruitment and the productivity of the company is dependent on that. We find that if the attrition is high and there is no formal culture being built which we want, then the company is just meandering around what the market is asking it to do. And for that, it's very important. And most of the things we are looking at is very, sorry to use that word, myopic. Today, this year, these people, if you are building an organization, and I'm happy that we have worked in organizations which are for keepsake, and even people quote whether it's State Bank of India, Reserve Bank of India, or of course HLL. So point I'm trying to make is that when you have a short-term objective, which is put through the portals of your board, and the management, which is there for only short-term because they have to take their own bonuses, they pass it down. Purely from the HR point of view, purely from the board's point of view, we would like to create an institution which is there for keepsake and can look at all these challenges, whether it was technology once upon a time in our younger years, now AI has come, and there's so many things like that. So point which I would like to see at the board level is that we have an institution which has a very strong base there, and 5% or 10% attrition will not matter. Today you're talking of 10% because 10% changes the game. It does not. So there has to be a huge amount of effort made by the management, its thinking, and the HR head to first, as somebody rightly mentioned, it's not a one-way road. It's a multi-pronged effort. That first you recruit the right person with the right attitude, with the right, aspirations, and also the right kind of attitude, which I think Mr. Ghosh mentioned, that if you have when I used to recruit people, I said, okay, if I'm taking this guy, he's a long-term liability. I have to take him for the next 20 years. Even if he leaves after 1 year, he's taken away from me because I have spent money in onboarding him, training him, telling my things, and then he goes away. And the second part is that when we are pointing out the market, you can't change the market. The only thing you can change is yourself. So as an organization, if you are able to build an organization which attracts people, understands them, what their aspirations are. See, when you look at it, compensation is the first level only. After that, your expectation or your aspirations come, which somebody mentioned that if you give them a career path for next 5-7 years, or they can look at it, I think Mr. From HLL gave an excellent example. And we tried it, that people who are on a contractual basis, they can never have loyalty to the organization. And without loyalty, you can't work. So to create a framework within the parameters and the legal framework of the country where you allowed them to come on board on that. So there was a loyalty across. And compensation, then so I think at the board level, we are looking at a long-term thing. We are therefore looking at next 10 years rather than the next year to get the bonuses or profits.
Wonderful. Yeah, the long term, the moment you increase the horizon, you start seeing people there. I'll give another story again, sir. I've learned from you quickly. I was going around meeting people as part of my job, and everywhere I go, once in 3 months, somebody will come, sir, this is the new star. He's the new branch head. And by the way, he started his career as a frontline salesperson. So the event will turn very warm. I'll feel very happy. And I'll come back and tell a story that a frontline salesperson has become a branch head. It happened 3-4 times. And again, some people will relate to it. When I asked the question, why the hell I'm celebrating? It is his right to become the branch head. Who else if not him? And then we went back and saw that the system was not even acknowledging that the career path from frontline actually leads to branch head. It's either you stay here, be productive, find some growth. One rare will get a chance to meet the corporate head people. Otherwise, you're out. And the pipeline starts from somewhere, the upper middle class, as we call it. So some people cracked it. This was the problem. Some people cracked it. And again, I just saw my two friends sitting at the back. Two things. Lots of us went and created apps, which is good. Productivity, I can see, I can find out what kind of customers I need to meet, what's happening in my market. However, at the same time, we also built some tracking systems, the GPS. Where is the salesperson going? Attendance marking. If you are 3 minutes late, it's so-and-so. So it also became a kind of monitoring system on the free-spirited salespeople. Sumit, I'm coming to you, and I think you tackle this. How do you humanize, use technology, but still keep the human part of your interaction with the frontline salespeople alive?
So hi, good evening everyone. My name is Sunit. I'm from Piramal Finance. So of course, with the tech, being available to track all this, I think one thing we follow, and of course something that's been quite successful, is that there is obviously going to be, a mandatory attendance that one needs to come, clocking and all that takes place and all, but there is also a bit of a freedom that is exercised by people. It's kind of democratized in a way there. Tracking of all this and showcasing it back again is not something that we follow as a culture. So culture is also something that gets set at the top because, like in our roles, we know there is little that you can complain about work life. So if you love doing what you do, there's no difference between work life because you bring personal thing to work or vice versa. And I think people are also quite matured and therefore we leave it to them to decide, what is the best time to come about and go about. For example, branch timings. We struggle with the fact that sometimes people want to work beyond 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 11 p.m. So again, kind of delegated it downwards. You guys decide what time you want to come and open the branch and shut the branch. Things like this have actually helped us develop a culture of ownership and accountability where people at the ground decide rather than it coming from a corporate office. And therefore, then they themselves are responsible for how they go about, conducting themselves.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And I recall you having done in your team very successfully. I'll spring a quick question, last question, and then I'll come to both of you to give a summary nugget of what you heard, if that's okay. Then we'll close the panel discussion. Shirang, I'm coming to you. When we started our careers, and you started after mine, much later than mine, we had a clear white-collar person whom we can see and a blue-collar person whom we could see. They are everybody white-collar now in our businesses, all the businesses we do. But still, do you believe that that mindset of this collar and that collar exists? If no, what's happening? How is it getting broken? And if it is there, what should we do for next 10 years or 12 years to really change this mindset of class in the working professional people?
So, no, thank you, Rajesh, for the question. It's a tough one, but I must say that in the financial services, I would say that I can't say it doesn't exist, but I think over the years, it is getting a bit blurred. But that said, I think it's also to do with the education system and our own recruitment processes. So, for example, we have our own tiering system of MBAs, etc. we hire from. So in some sense, at the hiring stage itself, we start this whole classification of who should enter at which part of the organization, which in most other countries world over, I think, is far more, I would say, even. So in some sense, for us, if you get into one of the top tier colleges, you start off at an advantage with respect to some other person who is probably not from the same campus. So I think the market does differentiate in that sense. So in some sense, we are a part of the ecosystem. So we kind of translate that into the corporation. But I think in the pharma world, I can tell you, Rajesh, I served there for a brief while. There, I think I've seen many CEOs who have started their career as medical reps, because there, somehow, in fact, you rarely find MBAs there.
Yeah.
Right? In organizations where the MBA percentage is very high, I think this class system tends to creep in even more. So, so that I think is one correlation, because that's the ecosystem that we kind of take into the organization. But in the banking sector, I would say that it exists, but it's also getting, as you rightly said, there are lots of people who've grown up the ranks and have made it really big. But I wouldn't say that it's completely non-existent. It takes quite an effort for them to break that ceiling and come. It's not impossible, but it's not an easy flow as it is for someone who obviously starts with an advantage.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, we acknowledge, and Sanjeev mentioned earlier also that the pride of salespeople, we speak about dalda becha hai kya, and then there is a pharma example. There is a lot to be learned from other industries, and I think this is that's what you're saying, this is the need of the hour, these artificial barriers or classes need to be broken. Mr. Mehta, I'll come to you first in terms of what you heard, and in case you would like to give a summary comment here.
I love Rajesh. इनको एक काम दिया गया था, पहले तो ये पूरे टेबल में घूमते रहे और बाद में इन्होंने हम दोनों को दे दिया समराइज करो. I love that. That's fabulous. That's a new skill I have learned today. I'm a chartered accountant by training, but my defining role in my career was when I became a salesperson. That was my defining role. And I still tell everyone that if you want to go up the ladder, if you want to understand where the rubber hits the road, if you want to really know where all the work that we do at the back end gets converted into cash, if you want to lead big teams, then you have to get into sales. And sales should have a pride of place in the organization. We come from a culture where we still give huge importance to academic results, and then you have a class system like many of you talked about. At the end of the day, the growth in the company should depend on performance and potential, which has not much to do with your academic performance, but more to do with your attitude, your aptitude, and your ability to be a learner all your life. And that's what we should focus on, and that's how you would get a best talent, move up the ranks, and make a difference to your organization.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Ghosh, may I request you to reflect from regulator point of view, because again, some of these are regulatory hassles also. You can't outsource some part of banking. So what's your independent take?
I'm not talking as a regulator, talking as Sandeep Ghosh. I don't feel you need to outsource anything more than what you've already done. I think bulk of outsourcing happens in the financial sector. The front line is today the BC. They are not even on your rolls. So what more do you want to outsource? 70% people are working with BCs. So I don't feel outsourcing is an issue. The issue is we have to understand that we don't, I'm chair of NRC in number of boards. We don't blink when we raise the salary of CHRO or risk officer, chief risk officer or a chief operating officer. We don't blink at all. And these runs into crores of rupees. We don't blink when we think about ESOPs and things like that. But we are not very comfortable when we want to do those marginal increases. I still feel that the front line contributes a lot to the top line because they are the first connect. And I remember one of the governors, while leading out Narayan Murthy from the Reserve Bank, he was a person who would, anybody came to meet him, he would see him off at the gate, downstairs. And while coming up, we came to know that the receptionist was requesting for Mr. Narayan Murthy's visiting card. So he said, then I'm not bothered what's happening to the value of the rupee. If the Reserve Bank receptionist does not know Mr. Narayan Murthy, who is coming to meet me and is asking for a visiting card from him, means where is the Reserve Bank? So that he would take care that the front line is the image of the organization. Who is meeting the chief risk officer? Who is meeting the CISO? Nobody is meeting the CISO and except for the board or maybe the top levels. Who's meeting them? The day-to-day connect is with the front line. And we need to open ourselves to that front line. I would only say that in the 21st century, India is a difficult example where we want our salaries to rise every year and we also want vertical movement. Many organizations, they want a change of designation also every year. So nowhere in the world, everybody is comfortable if they are moving horizontally, they are specializing in their area of work and they are getting a reasonably good increase where the salary is concerned. But if we have developed, it's not the B school, Mr. Dahiya. I was stagnating in a particular grade for 11 years, not because there was any problem with me, but because there were a couple of cases in the Supreme Court which you could not change, and they were because of the labor unions, who felt, how can you recruit directly in middle management? You have to recruit people only at the base and they should go up. And they quoted innumerable examples where a part-time typist or a clerk had become chairman of 2 banks and deputy governor of the Reserve Bank. So there was a career path for them, and they were able to say that authoritatively. So it's not when nobody is happy with what they are doing. Everybody wants to go to the top. In fact, the typical cliched question is, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years? And that guy jumps up and says, I'm looking at the CEO's position. I would rather ask the question should be changed to, how do you want to skill yourself in the next 5 years? And what is the type of support you want from me? If that was the question, there was some relevance. Otherwise, we'll continuously, even today in the interview board, I'm quite surprised they ask these questions. Nobody knows, 5 years you'll be there in that position if you're not working and not skilling yourself. You should be able to communicate that authoritatively. And if you require anything, so when I used to head the HR, when people said, sir, cost of education has gone up, I said, if you want to study the day you join Reserve Bank, any course you want to do in the country, we will pay for it. You just ensure that you have to pass it in the first round. And if you pass, we'll also give you an increment. So you can grow if you want. The organization has to take that call. But I'm only saying, look at the base salary. It's not very good for an organization that 85% of the salary budget is limited to maybe 15% of the staff. That has to flow down somewhere or the other, and the regulator is talking about it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. So first, it's a good that we, all of us, there are people on the board, there are CEOs, CXOs here. We are talking about the issue of the frontline salespeople, frontline, not only sales, but any frontline people. I think some things have been done in the past. COVID was a wake-up period, but lots more needs to be done technology is one solution. There are other solutions also, as somebody mentioned, that what happens to the culture, what happens to one-to-one touch. So thank you very much for all your support, and thank you for your support in helping me do my KRA. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rajesh sir, for hosting the wonderful session. We'll come back to the audience for a fun Q&A session at the end.